Hey everyone, my name is Mike Aubry. I'm one of the technology evangelists on the Autodesk Fusion 360 team. Today I'm going to give you an overview of a really useful complementary tool that we have within the broader Autodesk family called Autodesk Meshmixer. Meshmixer is a mesh manipulation tool which is so useful for Fusion users because it allows you access to editing file formats that actually you can't natively edit yet within Fusion. File formats I'm talking about are things like OBJ or STL, basically anything you would find on a website like Thingiverse, or things that you would create if you were going to make scan data. So like if you're using a tool like 123D Catch. This is all CAD. It's all great data that actually Fusion can bring in today. You can render, you can even 3D print from it, or even create cam pads on this stuff. But if you want to use this to edit other CAD within Fusion, well, then you need to do things like kind of convert it into an actual solid part within Fusion, and that's where Meshmixer can be a really useful tool. So with today's video, I'm going to give you an overview of 3 different workflows of some ways that Meshmixer can help you within Fusion. The first one is taking other CAD formats that are in scan formats and make them in an area they're more palatable by Fusion to use. So like an example here, I'm going to take this scan of my face and put it in a space so it's more useful within Fusion. Next thing I'm going to do is a workflow actually going the other way. I was saying that, well, in addition to us bringing stuff in that maybe wasn't natively created within Fusion, let's talk about a workflow where if you create something that is nicely created within Fusion, like this rook, really easy to make, but you want to do extra things to it, like let's take a more artistic twist on it and give them like some super sweet like muscles and add some texture to it. That's actually a workflow that you can get there within Fusion, but maybe Meshmixer is a nice complementary workflow that might even help you get to what you're looking for even faster. So I'm going to show you how to do this. And then the final one is, I think a really common question I get is like, hey, I found something on Thingiverse, but I just need to make some subtle changes to it so I can make it work better with my 3D print bed, or I just want to make some quick edits. This is a workflow that actually is better for Meshmixer, so I'll show you how to do this. So it's going to be a longer video. It'll probably be about 30 minutes in this stuff, because I'm going to actually show you how to use Meshmixer, move things around, and then go through those workflows. So buckle in, get some popcorn, and let's get started. So the first workflow I want to show you today is how you can take scan data and make it useful within Fusion. So here's a great example of where if you just wanted to bring in just a scan of something and make it look good to stage, like in this case I'm just kind of using it to show off how I can fit all these different glasses on top of my face. Make it so it looks nice. So it's cleaned up. There's an appropriate resolution, so it comes in nicely. The next level stuff we'll do this is actually, you can even go a step further with this, is you can put this into a state where you can actually manipulate other CAD with it. So actually I'll be showing you a workflow how to even make a mold of this face. So this is what I came as an end state. The beginning state actually didn't look like that at all. This is actually what it originally looked like within 123D Catch, and so you can see there's a hole in my head. There's no backside to me, so if you guys have ever wondered, what's going on inside my head, well, it's not pretty. There's not really a lot going on upstairs. But anyway, I digress. This is a file that you get off 123D Catch. If you haven't tried it, you definitely should. You just go and you download it, and it'll come in as an STL. And so that's what we'll start off for this first overview within Meshmixer. So we'll start this thing off. This is kind of what we're going to be working towards creating. We'll just go ahead and I'll just start a new one. So here's my face. And so I went ahead and removed some of the outside stuff just to kind of speed up the detail. But the first thing you notice when you bring stuff into Fusion is that there's just there's quite a bit of detail in here that we just don't need, and then we got to fix some things. So let's talk real fast of how you can move around and make things work for you within Meshmixer. It feels different than Fusion, so let's talk about some of the basics. Get your good 3-button mouse. I know you have it. If you don't, you should. You get no pity from me if you don't. The way you rotate things in this is actually, it's with a right click middle mouse button. That's how you rotate. You can also do shift middle mouse button click, so it will work just like what you have with Fusion there. But the pan is still middle mouse button click. Where you're zooming is actually the center of the screen rather than where your cursor is. It feels a little different, but you can change that actually under your actually no, it's just recenter at cursor. so if you get over here and I just need to go, I just hit C and you can recenter. So no big deal there. Other ways to move things around, you'll see the way you can make things look, show the wireframe or not. That's the W key. So you can see this is what it looks like with or without. That's also here. You can see it under your W, this show wireframe. That's what they call it in Meshmixer. There is a browser that if you have different objects, it'll show up there. It looks, roughly like you'd see within Fusion. Just there's a bunch of different bodies. And where it varies, though, from Fusion is actually how you select and manipulate things. So let's talk about that first. So for the first way to show off how we would select and move things, we need to remove some detail anyway. I only need my face. I don't need this bottom section. So first place we'll look at within Meshmixer is take a look at how you select things. So if we go and hit the select option, this brush is actually a sphere that you can change the size of how big things are selecting. And so you can just kind of with your left mouse button click and drag things around. And that's a perfectly good way to go select. If we want to go and delete these things, you just go select, clear to unselect. There's an easier way. That's really slick. So actually, if we just go and kind of start picking my nose like I'm putting sunscreen on it or something, if you hold down the control key and the middle mouse button and drag, you can actually select outward. Isn't this slick? Check that out. And so in this case, I'm going to select everything that I want, and then I'll go back later and I'll use it to delete what I don't want. So I'm just kind of moving out. We're expanding. And then once you get it kind of like I have most of the stuff selected, you can then go in and then fringe select. So we can just go and just kind of select a little bit more what I want. I'll say, yeah, we'll take you, and then maybe a little bit more on my neck. If you overarch, like here I screwed that up. If you hold down the control key, that also can be used to subtract what it is you're choosing. So here we get this guy. All right. So we'll say, looks pretty good to me. I think that's going to look just swimming. We'll take it, and then we'll say, first off, we'll go to modify to invert what I've selected. So everything that wasn't selected, now it looks like I'm going to the barber or something. We'll take that, and then we'll discard it. So it's not delete, it's actually discard, and it's the X key to get rid of stuff. And so now we've got this guy. So the stuff that we're going to do here is we're gonna smooth this. We're going to reduce some of that extra detail, and we're going to also make this into a solid so that we can Fusion can bring it in as just a surface. You can work with stuff, but actually I like working with solids because I maybe you want to 3D print something. So we're gonna show that workflow anyway. So one of the first things I'm going to do is before I make it a solid is I'm going to make this so it's not quite so jagged. And so actually, if we kind of double click with our selection tool, we can select everything, but then you can say modify the boundary. We can smooth this boundary on the outer edge, and so you can see it'll just go and select this outer area, and then we can choose how deep we want to smooth this thing in just by increasing the rings we have in here. So make it so it goes further in, and then increase the smoothness of this guy. And it can really highlight. You zoom in, we'll see what you can do here. You see how we're getting rid of some of those hard edges. So we're going to smooth this guy up, and don't worry about preserving the shape for this guy. We'll kind of bump that guy down. Go out a couple more iterations. Yeah, so these kind of settings, you see how that really made it a little more dramatic. Do more iterations. Actually, let's go all the way to the top here. I'm liking that. Okay. Yeah, dig it. So you got this. It's looking good. And we'll say accept. And now we're ready to go and make this guy solid. So under your editing options, there actually is an option. There's actually a bunch of different analytics and stuff we can go through, but actually here, just focus on making it a solid. And what that'll do is that it'll go fill in that back end, the back side, and give me some substance. So here's our solid object. So now we just got some smoothing to do on this. So we'll take this back side here, and then we'll go and select it. So we can go and select all this guy. Another interesting tool we can have, so if I go around this and just kind of do that click drag, it's bleeding into the other side. But if we go and choose to, instead of by geodesic distance, if you go by crease angle, and then kind of what angle it is, if you go then and move it out, it'll actually go and see how it only selects certain surfaces. Pretty handy to go out there and get you to your outer boundary. Pretty handy. And then we can just go in and kind of select the rest of it. So let's take this guy. Actually, we can go back from the crease angle, go back to geodesic distance. Yeah, and then just kind of do a little bit to get just the rest. Pretty handy. So we'll take you. let's take this guy and we'll smooth out the back. So we can smooth this actually with under your modify, or actually your deform settings. There's an option to smooth. And so we'll take that. It's looking pretty good. And we'll shape preserve. Just keep it uniform. Well, actually, maybe, shape preserve it. Bump up the scale. Yeah. This guy, pretty nice. I like it. And maybe we got some work to do with this guy. Let's show you one other handy tool that we've got. We've done just general mesh manipulation so far, but Meshmixer actually has a sculpting tool as well that you can go in there and just kind of hand sculpt out stuff. It's different from Fusion 360 sculpting. In our sculpting in the Fusion world, it's you have a polygonal mesh, a quad mesh that you're pulling on edges and surfaces. In this case, you're editing just individual triangles, but you just kind of pull out these brushes. So like if I go on a volume level and say things like flatten, check out what I can do. I can just go in there and just flatten whole surfaces. It's super fun. And so this will be a lot like if you've used like a tool like a mud box within Fusion. So actually I'm killing my ear here. Let's not do that. I guess to show you, a little more example of like where the flattening tool goes here. Let's bump up our strength. So like we can go in there and just kind of smooth this thing out. Yeah. Like that. It kind of feels like, have you ever used Sculptress? That's another tool this kind of feels like. Okay, so we've got, well, I'm having a bad hair day. Let's see this. Yeah, that needs to change. So to get this guy to come down, instead of going by a volume basis, if we go by surface, so just on the surface level, you see how it's no longer a sphere now, it's just going on this guy. I can do things like shrink. You can shrink this guy down. Just take a little off the top. Yeah. Kind of fun. Maybe turn off my area, take out the stencil. There we are. So I had my stencil turned on. Actually, I don't know if you noticed that stuff. Like if I go back and say on a draw level, if I turn on these stencils, I can add like texture to it. See how it's kind of, let's see if we bump up the strength of this guy. It kind of adds a bubble to it. Let's make it a little smaller. Yeah, so it'll add little speckles to it. Happy speckles. So we can, I guess, give myself some more hair or something up here. But yeah, so we can do things like add texture. Meshmixer, pretty handy. Okay, looking pretty good. Now we've got to kind of smooth out this face here. That's pretty hideous. So we'll go and I'll just say you. Take you. Maybe the forehead. And we'll go under modify, hit deform, smooth. Okay, thank you. Yep, nice shave job there. And now the only thing left to do, you probably want to fix some of these edges too. What kind of a best practice there to kind of fix those edges is you can actually, if you go back and when you've done editing all these things, actually go back and make it a solid again. That's a good kind of best practice to kind of clean up things. It's good for two reasons. Like you can, first off, it'll clean up those edges, but then also it's a good opportunity to kind of change the density of the mesh itself. So like if we go and hit that wire, you see that there's a lot of detail in here. We can actually bump that down. To keep the accuracy up, but actually bump the mesh density down. Because we don't need all this detail for Fusion. If you pull it in there, that's probably a little blocky. You know, let's actually bump up the density, and we'll show you another way to edit this stuff out. But what this is going to do is that it's going to clean up the, it's going to make sure we have a solid that we can pull in there. So here's, let's see, actually makes a copy of it. So let's get rid of our original ones here. Let's get rid of you. Let's get rid of you, and we're just going to keep you. Now this is going to be too much detail for Fusion because Fusion says keep it to 10,000 facets. That's something that it'll be able to convert to a solid. Facets is connections, and so there's some ways we can reduce that detail within Meshmixer. First off is through either remeshing, and the second way is through reducing. Both of them start by just selecting what it is you want to retopologize, and so that's you can just kind of select everything, or you can actually double click and select the whole thing, and then just go to Edit, Reduce, or Remesh. We'll be doing Remesh in the next exercise, so for now, the difference is that Remesh will actually retopologize things. Reduce will keep the same topology, but will reduce the detail between them. So reduce, some great ways to get down some of the complexity here is just to kind of go by percentage, just remove half of it. Just kind of go and do it twice. You don't have to worry about dealing with dials, and you can see how it just becomes a lot more obvious. How much mesh is enough mesh? Well, one that's going to keep the minimum amount of detail to bog down the machine, and but also has enough that you understand what it is that's actually what it's representing. So yeah, we'll go and just say 50%, and then the final good reducing option you have is actually, instead of going by percentage, go by triangle budget. That guy will actually say how many triangles you want to have in there. So to get to 10,000 facets, usually I've had a lot of success with saying things like 9,000. On some models, actually, I've needed to go down as low as 4,000 triangles to make that facet limit work. But just start off with 9,000, see how it works. If you need to come down, you can, because that looks pretty accurate. So to get this into Fusion, what we'll do is you just export it, and then we'll insert it as what we call a mesh. That's what it is. So you can go out as an STL or an OBJ. We'll call this Mike Amazing Face. Sounds like a great name for it. So Mike Amazing Face. And then what you'll do, actually, let's close this guy up, is just create a new design. So it's that you don't actually insert it off the default. We actually ask you to insert a mesh, and you won't see insert mesh immediately available, because within the parametric modeling environment, we actually ask you to say, like, insert it either within the create base feature or create form environments, because typically when you insert a mesh, you're going to want to convert it to something else so that you can use it within Fusion. And so we can either convert to a T-spline body or a sculpted body, or we can say a B-rep solid body. And so the workflow I'm going to show you here is create a base feature so we can create a B-rep from this. And the way you do it is you go into the base feature environment where it's modeling. We just don't have a parametric history of it. And just say insert mesh. So we'll go and find Mike's Amazing Face. And make sure you keep the units right. And then there's our guy. It's useful in this state, but to actually use it to manipulate other geometry within Fusion, you need to go an extra step and say we're going to convert this to a B-rep. So that's just right-clicking on the guy and saying mesh to B-rep. And so you're only going to see this option within, again, the base feature environment. So if you aren't there, you won't see that. But mesh to B-rep, and then you'll say, yeah, create a new body from it. And then at this point, if we have too much detail, it'll give us a warning and say, hey, you need to have less than 10,000 facets. So if that's the case, you'll see that. In our case, we're looking pretty good, and we've got ourselves a solid body now that we can go and start doing some stuff with. So let me just do some stuff here with that, and then we'll move on to the next exercise. So the stuff you can do to edit would be things that there's some things that work well and some things that don't. The first one is if we just want to go and split things. That's a workflow that works really nicely. So like I guess the first thing we need to do is get this guy into the right space so it's so it looks it's a little more useful. So we'll put this guy closer to my origin, and we'll rotate him a little bit. Okay, just say something like this. Okay, we'll take this guy. And then you do things like we can split it. So like things like split body work great. Body split, splitting tool will be the plane itself. You can make a sketch or something like that. And you see it is solid. Where we're operating from here. So now we have two different bodies. So here's the first one, and there's the second one. So we can go and say I don't want this guy. We'll remove him. Like if we were gonna maybe this is gonna be something that's gonna go mount on the wall, because I know you guys definitely want to have like a mic face on the wall greeting you all. You do things like create into the faces that you make that are as a result of your modeling. Those are going to be really stable. So like here, if we wanted to just make a little peg hole or something, say take this guy and extrude him in. This stuff will all work really great. Other stuff that it's great for is if you want to use it as the negative for things, like if this is so this guy's gonna sit into something because we know we're gonna make a nice awesome mic face, but in order to make that mic face, you need to make some sort of plaster mold. So again, Fusion's gonna be great for that because we can go and just go create something that you're gonna be making a mold from. So we can let's say let's make like a box. Say call this guy a new body. Maybe make him a little thicker. And then move him over a little bit. Get him, okay, here we go. Get my face in there. Maybe suppress this guy for the time being. And then we can just go and do a Boolean operation. Say things like, let's combine it. Say like, here's my target, here's my tool. Go ahead and cut away, but keep the face. That's what keep tool does. You can see that, yeah. There's our mic mold. It gets even more excited for that than that. Like you can, because this is the parametric modeling environment, we can go in before we do that. You could even say like, well, I know there's going to be some sort of shrinkage based on the plastic that I'm using or the gel that I'm going to be molding from. So you can go in there and say like, let's go ahead and bump this up maybe a little bit, make it even a little larger. Maybe a scale factor of 1.1. So there's quite a bit you can do with these models now that we have them in converted. So we'll take this guy, scale him, and then that'll update my mold size. There's our new mold. The stuff that's going to be hard for you to do, given that this is coming from a tessellated space, would be things like going and adding like rounds. So like this guy, all these edges, that gets a little rough. So if I'm going to go and actually go and make a fillet on these guys, like good luck with that. I mean that's where you're going to have just a jolly good time. I would try and stay away from any of those natural edges or trying to manipulate the initial geometry that you brought in. Try and stay away from that. Like press, pull, and stuff, your mileage is going to vary on that. Stay away from those type of operations. It's just going to be, you're going to have a bad time. Gosh, but for everything else, I mean, look at that. That's pretty useful. I mean, I just created really quickly there, not a lot of work, refined the face mesh, and then create a mold from it. So that's the first workflow. Let's the next workflow. Let's go ahead and move on to something where create something like this and saying that the first workflow we're bringing stuff in. In this case, we're sending stuff out to Meshmixer, where maybe it'd be a better creation tool. So the way I'm doing this is so that this rook was created just with making some revolves and extrusions. I think any of you guys, if you're good with Fusion, I mean this is not a hard part to make. So to get it to Meshmixer though, is actually all you got to do is right-click on it and either save as an STL, or you can even use the send to 3D print workflow. I mean, there's things like 3D print. There's a bunch of ways to get there. You just need to save it out. So this is probably my favorite way to get there, is just save it as an STL and just say send it to your 3D print utility, which is Meshmixer. It's interesting. So Meshmixer, I haven't talked about it actually as being a 3D printing utility, but it is manipulating STLs. So actually one of the first places that we were using it actually was for 3D print manipulation. You can use Meshmixer to be your preprocessor for 3D printing if you want to. So like here, whether it's the Ember, if you're going to go out to like a replicator, you can take this guy to move things into place. You can do things like, well in this case for the rook, if we wanted to do this, like add supports, we can go in there and it'll add the supports. So I'm showing you the stuff that it's in there, but actually if you're looking for more 3D print, or this type of workflow, the workflow that's actually going to be better for you instead of using Meshmixer actually would be, if we win and send this thing out, is you should actually send it to Print Studio. If you haven't tried that, take a look at that. I'm not going to show it in this video because it's getting long enough anyway, but that's a really good one. Or just use your typical preprocessor. I mean, we're definitely not demanding you use anything there. To get back to where we were just a moment ago to actually use this to create stuff, that's under the modify section. So go and modify it and bring it in there, and then we'll be back and we're using Meshmixer as a mesh manipulation tool. So let's do some mesh mixing. Under the sculpting options, I think some of the fun things we've got there are like going in there, the brushes, like this flatten tool I love. So like I can go in there and just kind of add these little little fun results there. So as I'm doing this, even though this guy, that's looking pretty interesting. Just a little bit more hand drawn, or actually I'm operating in clay. You notice it's really screwing with the side mesh though. That looks like garbage, like it's splintering out before me. So one of the things we can do actually before we start, kind of hand manipulating this stuff, is let's remesh it to be more useful for this. So these, if you look at the mesh, hit the W button. This tessellation is really nicely put to be for angles. In some of these areas where we're working, though, you really want to have more equilateral triangles. So it actually behooves us to localize our mesh to where we're going to be adding stuff and moving stuff around. So in order to do that, let's use our selection tools again. And this time, as we're doing it, let's use the crease angle to go in and just choose the faces that we think we're going to be most commonly editing. So like this guy, that's one we're going to want to use, and then maybe... we want to re-edit this guy? No, actually, let's just stay here, right here for this guy. And then this will go and we'll remesh. So reduce is going to keep the same basically layout of the mesh, but just remove detail. Remesh will actually retopologize it. And that's what we'll do here. And you see how it's really easy. Just kind of go and choose a density. That looks about right. Let's say accept. And now when we go to edit things, you'll notice actually it'll look a lot nicer. So we'll go and change the size, and we'll just kind of, see. And then, so this is going to be adding, it adds refinement it to the mesh where it's going to be sculpting things. He'll hit the W to make it look a little nicer. Yeah, so this is going to look a lot better. So anyway, so I'm just kind of taking stuff and just playing around. You should play around with the sculpting tools. They're fun. So the next thing we can use this for actually is for mesh mixing, is you can use it to add other meshes in and blend them. It's called the Mesh Mix, and it's a really useful tool. It's an absurd tool. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the stuff. This poor bunny has been subjected to more abuse as a result of the mesh mixing tool. I have no doubt you'll have fun abusing him as well. But yeah, you can go in there under your primitives, look for different things like arms, heads, legs, and then you just go and kind of drag them in, and then yeah, so we've got this really cool arm that I can go in there and start making my rook super buff. So the center button here, that chooses where it goes, and then this little side triangle right here, that chooses the scale, and then the inner wheel, that'll choose the rotation. So there's our awesome, really super buff looking rook that we're adding in there. Actually, the other thing on this, remember the scale. So here, 3895. Remember that guy, because when we go and add the next side in, you can just go in and say I'd like him to be on the other side. Go and hit flip, and then you can do the opposite. So we'll use the same size, 385. Actually, he looks a lot bigger. Oh, I guess no, he's the right size. Okay, yep, he's the right size. Yeah, so put him up. Yeah. Any fun? So there's our super buff looking. Well, actually, is he that buff? Let's make him buffer. Actually, that doesn't look like he hasn't been hitting the gym lately, so we need to go in there and hit the gym. So I'll take in there and let's inflate this guy. Give him some muscles. Yeah, roid him out. Anyway, I have no doubt you'll make your own scary objects. So here, this guy's looking pretty cool. That probably is a little bit ambitious here for him, so maybe we'll deflate that guy a little bit. Yeah, okay. All right, so now we've got this guy looking pretty good. Now we need to just get him in a state where we can bring him back into Fusion and use him. You'll notice when you go to select these guys, they are actually treated as different objects. They don't show up as different objects in your browser, but a best practice when these come over into Fusion, they actually come in as 3 different scans. That can be okay if you're just trying to get a rendering, then just export it back to Fusion as is. If you're trying to get it as a solid, though, go through those same best practices as before. Go in there and make it a solid. And then when you're making it a solid, you might have to do a little extra work, like trying to clean up some of these edges. The other way you can do it is actually, instead of actually making it solid, if you want to take a risk, you can go back and actually restitch them within Fusion. Let me show you what that looks like. So while this guy's going, so I have another guy I pulled up ahead of time. So this guy, the way we modeled him, is actually brought him in as 3 different scans. So this is if you don't do that, make solid. And so what you can do here to make them so they're, if you want to make one solid body out of them, is, well, let's do it. So if I go back and actually make these guys mesh to be rep, new body, they'll originally be patches, and so you'll be able to see that, and that they're not, you know, they're not solid. There's nothing in them. So like you can see, there's nothing there. But you can go and then using the patch environment, Fusion, actually stitch them. So your mileage again is going to vary on this. So basically what it is you give two different boundaries. It gives a tolerance of what it can do to hold, and it'll pull them together. And then if it's watertight, it'll then convert them to a solid. So this is another way to do it. I mean, Fusion's really flexible at stuff. I mean, now that it's, you know, that you got actual surfaces, it actually can do quite a bit more with them. So we'll take this guy, stitch, stitch, take that. And so that's, yeah, so now we have our guy actually has a solid body and all the stuff, the good stuff we can do with that, like we showed in the prior example. So that's a way of actually, I still back in Meshmixer, still thinking about the other kind of brute method that I had, where I was going to over mesh it and then reduce it. So there's a couple ways to get there. Actually, I'm going to cancel that operation. Okay, the final workflow that I want to share off is one that is the most common, but I saved it to the end because it's the one that can be, I guess, probably the most abused, and maybe I caused the most pain with my answer. And that is someone saying that I found something on Thingiverse, but I just want to make a quick change to it. Can you help me? The answer to this is, yeah, you can change some things off of things you get on Thingiverse, but a lot of the things that I have a feeling that you want to change, you probably aren't going to be able to. So let's use this as an example to both build you up and drag you guys back down to earth who want to edit things off of Thingiverse. So this is a nice example that shows a lot of the stuff of what Meshmixer can and can't do, and the stuff that Fusion actually with STL data can and can't do. It's a really awesome, looks like a pretty powerful whistle. I'm a Fox 40 fan myself, as a prior referee in a prior life. Let's talk about some of the things that actually Meshmixer is really good about editing in this particular part. So here it is, brought into Meshmixer. You can see it's, you know, nicely set up so that the wider end is on the bottom, like you're going to print it. The sort of things that we can change within Meshmixer are things like proportions or broad smoothing. Like if you want to remove detail, Meshmixer is great at doing that. What it's not great at doing is if you want to do precise manipulations. So like if I want to move just this face, not easy. You can do it, but it's not going to get you, I think, the precision that what people typically are asking me for when they ask that question. So let's talk about what it can do. Like if we wanted to just get rid of this V29, you know, that's actually a pretty doable question. All you got to do is just go and select it, right? So we just go and say, this guy, I don't want that. Okay, cool. So just go and let's go and smooth it out. So just go say, take you, modify, smooth, and go smoothing scale. And actually, we should do it for the whole face to really make it so it is smooth. And we know this trick, right? We just go, we edit, we go by crease angle, control. We can go select this whole darn thing here. Pretty cool. Then maybe we'll deselect, you know, some of this guy, some of this intern here. Let's go and pull you back a little bit. And then we'll say smooth. So take this guy, so you got to get it go in, smoothing, get rid of the constraint rings. You know, that's pretty easy. And you might go and remesh it to get rid of it, but yeah, that's you know, when we go and smooth this thing out, that'll be fine. Other stuff that it's really good at doing is if you want to change the proportions of stuff. So like if we go and select the whole thing, under this your translation options, you can go in there, like if you want to like make this thing, the tone a little deeper, you can just go and you just scale it out. You know, so scaling, it works really well. If you want to change things on a qualitative basis, so like I'd like to make it so this lip actually is a little bit, you know, maybe a little more ergonomic or maybe a little more stylish. You know, those things, you know, really easy. We got the sculpting tools there to go in there and you change them the size. So you're like, okay, all right, so let's go and we'll just flatten this guy out. You know, these things, you know, they're pretty consistent with what the first two examples show. But what you aren't getting is like if we wanted to go and extrude this face, can you extrude the face? Yeah, you can. So we go in there and choose things like you choose the face, keep the crease angle, select it. The way you would do it is actually through that transform. Just go and move it. But what you don't get is the precision. So you do get the, you can do it. So we can actually bring this guy out. If you wanted to move this face, you could bring the guy out and then put it back to Fusion and then be more precise. You actually edit out a cut plane to do it. So you can get there. Do you want to? That's up to you. But I was showing that actually on paper, Meshmixer can help you do it, and that's how you would do things like edit or move out a face. Likewise, if we wanted to make this guy bigger, I just want to make this guy. It's not a matter of press pull on the face. You're selecting, just this entity right here. We'll go and actually take you as well, and that would be things like let's offset it, make it bigger. So that'd be edit through an offset. You can go and make this guy bigger. And actually, you can be explicit about this. Say, I'd like it to be 2 millimeters bigger. And it'll do it. And then you got to go do a little bit of cleanup work there because I guess I overreached there. So let's actually undo that. Let's go and just make it maybe a half. Yeah, so here's our guy. So those types of little changes, those are actually quite manageable within Meshmixer. And really the secret to that is just understanding how the selection filter works. There's this crease angle and geodesic distance. So hopefully... I'm not sure I'd want to. That looks terrible, but that looks pretty good. Hopefully that helps answer some of your questions on, hey, how do I do some more precise or specific edits within Meshmixer? With that concludes this overview of using Meshmixer for Fusion 360. I hope it was useful for you. We talked about taking scan data and manipulating that so it can be useful within Fusion. We talked about taking stuff within Fusion and manipulating it within Meshmixer. And along the way, we talked about some workflows that make sense and other ones that maybe don't make as much sense. So I hope it was useful for all of you. We're really looking forward to putting some of this functionality within Fusion very soon, and we look forward to working with you guys more in the future. Take care.